Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bedpost Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Erin Pym. Here at the podcast, I like to invite guests and performers from my stage show Bedpost that I do here in Toronto and beyond into the studio to have a more in-depth conversation about sex and sexuality with me. This week, I have a pretty kind of professional kind of a guest today. I have Pleasure Coach Beth Ostrander. Hello, Beth.
Hi, Erin.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Yeah.
We have a pretty cool topic on the
I love
table
it.
today.
Taboo and taboo.
The most taboo. No, it's funny. I am in this Facebook group called Podcasts We Listen To, and it's podcast listeners and podcasters just kind of chatting back and forth about a gazillion things. And I put out a post. I'm like, talking about sex and religion on the Bedpost podcast today.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any topics they would like for us to cover or any questions? No response.
Oh,
there are 18,000 members in this Facebook group. Nothing.
I'm telling, crickets. and I swear this happens to me all the time because I talk about this. Yeah. I mean, I'm nervous. I sometimes call myself the awkward coach because I too am a little nervous about the topic.
Could you teach a class
on being awkward?
Yeah.
Oh, I so could. In fact, I was at a great event yesterday, the Shy and Anxious support group.
Oh, wow.
Because I so relate. That was that was me. And now I talk about sex. So you can imagine the shy and awkwardness. It rises its ugly head. But it's so every once in a while, I'll bump into someone who I'm always like, they're on my Facebook, they're on my social media, and they'll be like, I've been following you. And I'm like, so why? Like, I don't ask them. I know why they're not commenting. But again, I'm always not surprised. I think I'm surprised they're actually watching.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm realizing it's the silence, and they're still watching. It's because we're all
very
thinking and wondering. But this is a risky conversation when you throw those two together.
How did you get started talking about sex and religion in tandem? Because that's like, how? I'm very curious.
It wasn't like over a bedtime talk with my parents. I can tell you that. It wasn't like, when I grow up, I want to do this.
They would have said no.
Oh, praying would have begun.
Yeah.
Like praying, right? Like for real. Like I have great parents and love. Like they just came over on Saturday and my mom and I had a cry fest because I often wonder, like, am I hurting you? I love you. And this is what I must talk about. So yeah, it's a good question. It was my life story. Yeah. I got kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened? What happened?
What messed me up?
What fucked you up? We all fucked up. So what's your specific damage?
Yeah, my specific. I love it, right? And then, wow, we could spend the whole hour on my specific damage. And then some, like, to be continued.
Big question.
Weekly,
Two-parter.
Right? I'll come back? Yeah, okay. Yep. Then we'll do you. Yeah. I'm sure I'll have to go back and watch. And then your fucked upness.
You'll get a lot of me.
Yeah, okay. So to answer it like in the short, because then it'll show up.
Great.
Is just like any other kid, we're learning the world through tactile means. And so just like we learn a pen by touching a pen, I learned body by touching body.
Yes.
Normal.
And
freaky deaky for parents if they think that's bad and wrong.
yes.
And so once upon a time, I was exploring. And in an enjoyable way. That's natural for a young child, right?
Yes.
And my poor mom, and I often hesitate to even say my mom's, like, even, it's not her name.
Yeah.
But even her name, I'm conjuring her up in my brain.
Yeah. And you're just like, sorry.
I'm sorry, but this is important. Yeah. And so, so in some form, I don't even remember the conversation or lack of, but there was some communication that I got. Stop that. Yeah. Like, stop that now. Yeah. And it was this first of many confusing messages. Body says nice. Parent loved people who love me, safe people, say no. Wrong and bad. Don't do that. So it was like, and that was early. I was probably 7 or 8, right? And so growing up in Christian evangelical, which is really just a form of Christian that wants everyone else to be Christian. Okay. So it's pretty like, it's all encompassing and intense and let's save the world kind of thing because we love the world. Like, so it's coming from a lovely place and it's a bit intense.
Yeah, but it's like convert.
In love.
But love.
With no exception.
Right.
Love you, Mom. Okay. So for me, it was a journey of like this confusion of shutdown, hiding these things. And then at some point, just not hiding much anymore. It just wasn't there. This sexual desire, I mean.
Right.
Through teenage, it was.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
And again, confusion,
natural.
complication in my brain, wanting to be good girl. Oh, the good girl syndrome. So many of us know this, whether you grew up in Christian or not, our society wants us to be good girls.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, fast forward, got into marriage, didn't know my own desires because I'd shut them down so much. But then all of a sudden you're supposed to turn a switch on because it's allowed now.
Yeah.
But the switch didn't work.
Yeah.
So
because
then,
of everything you've
because
been...
of everything, and I couldn't even register what I may or may not want. It wasn't even a thing, and then it just kind of I didn't handle that well. So there was a lot of frustration.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was there in our conversations. It was missing, and so that was just kind of tricky. So there's more to it.
Yeah.
I won't bore everyone. But basically that conflict between what my religion was telling me, which most of it was loving and good. So it was like, well, of course, this is also loving and good, but yet conflicting with what my body was wanting. And then an eventual kind of shutdown and then lack of communication with someone I loved and cared for and vice versa. We both didn't navigate that effectively.
Yeah.
Then when we ended, for various reasons, not just that, I went on my own journey, and it was the oddest thing because as I allowed myself to explore and kind of, okay, who am I as a sexual being? It was weirdly parallel to my whole life. Meaning my whole life, I didn't realize I was so shut down. And it also opened up. So then I started talking about it because this was fascinating, and I'm a bit of like a self-help geek.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is cool. And I talk.
Share my knowledge.
Right? Well, yeah.
And other people experience this.
They must know.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, you see, evangelical. Now it's happening in sex. They trained me to do this. Somehow I just saw that.
That just dropped in.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Thank you, church. Wow, that's funny. Okay, so then I remember having many, many conversations with people, just random people in a very, like usually one-on-one. And then they'd start telling me things and they'd be like, I never told anyone that. And there was this freedom. And like, we'd laugh and giggle. And then we'd be like, wow, that felt good. And so I just started to realize this. I did accounting in my background, okay? Was sucking my soul out. And then somehow I found something I adored and was an amazing, fascinating conversation. And when I kept seeing that people were finding this was a space to talk, that got me excited.
Yeah. That got you off in a whole different way.
Totally different way.
Because I think something that's important to say early off in this podcast is that the solution for you wasn't, okay, fuck all my religious, spiritual stuff I've ever been taught. Throw that away because, you know, I want to have sex now. That's not what you're saying.
Well, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all what I'm saying. In fact, I have to be straight. It was a journey of wanting to say that because I was so conflicted. So
I get that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that conflict happened, that conflict of faith happened quite early because I went through in my I'm now 43 proudly.
Yeah.
So I went in my 30s through like clinical depression and had some serious self-esteem issues and capacity to talk still shows up sometimes, clearly, was not there. I had a limited ability to voice what I wanted, to know what I wanted. Anyway, all of that at the same time, I was questioning my faith because it was intended to have me be happy. So my faith journey, and that's another parallel. So that's why I love talking about the two converging, because my faith journey and my sexual journey were happening not exactly simultaneously, except when I look back, I realize, oh my, they were so intertwined. So that's where it's led me to bringing the two together.
Yeah.
And it's actually brought me round to realize, oh my gosh, yes, a lot of repression, shutting down, therefore not accessing what's truly me. But what is on the flip side, when I get out of that I'm so angry space around God and faith and all of this, I'm like, wow, I was designed to be in contact with my soul. Like I was already able to be in touch with my soul because of that. And therefore I'm longing to do soulful level things, like not surface level things. And sexual interaction with self, like self-love, self-intimacy, and with another person is a soul. You have the capacity to do it at a soulful level.
For sure.
And not everyone is. And so that's what I'm up for, like soulful sex life. That's what I'm aiming. So they're so intertwined.
Yeah.
And so there's like the pros and cons of what religion has done to or done for us, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, so let's talk about how a lot of us are affected by religion and the religions that we're grown up into and what that means for our own journeys and our own sexual journeys.
Yeah. Well, you and I, we messaged back and forth.
Yeah.
And we both have our own experience of religion.
Yeah, I grew up in a Catholic high school, the Catholic schooling system. At home, not intensely Catholic because my dad is atheist, but we went to church, not every Sunday, but we went to church on holidays for sure. But I did a lot of churchy mass schooling type stuff on the regular at school.
Right.
Like we had our religion class that we went to every day. And and we had some of the teachers and whatnot were very Catholic. They were very Catholic in nature. I didn't go to a school where it was run by nuns or priests or anything like that, but for sure people that were very fervent Catholics.
I haven't heard that word in a while.
Yeah.
I bump into religious words every once in a while. I'm like,
that.
I remember that.
But and then masses on, a couple times a week, you'd go to mass at school as a part of the curriculum. You would go to mass. Yeah. It was so even though I didn't go to church with my family tons, like my family wasn't super religious, just because I was put in that schooling system, I was exposed to it like hard.
Yes.
A lot of
it.
A
lot. Daily. Like that's
weekly.
That is intense.
All the time. Yeah.
Well, and the question, like I tend to I zoom in on people I call affected by religion. And that was an interesting thing that you said, oh yeah, I grew up, we just like brief sentence email back and forth. I'm like, oh yeah, that's her version of affected by religion. And as I talk to people, I'm like, wow, most of us are in some shape or form affected by religion. And when I'm saying religion, I'm saying some sort of organized way of making sense of our spiritual journey. And so it's not just Christian. We're talking Catholic, Christian here, but a lot of my clients are different religions. And so what I've observed is there's like different grades or levels of affected by religion. And there are those of us who are more intensely. So you and I in our own versions we're quite intensely brought up in religion. Me and my household, you daily at school, right? And then there's those who are in maybe if you took out the school, your family might have been in that next level where they're, you might go to mass at the holiday time. It's like in the reference.
And like our extended family was quite religious. So my mom's extended family, very religious.
See, and even having your dad as atheist, there's an anti-religion conversation going on somewhere in the world there. So it's still affected by religion, which is I find really cool. And then let's say I just recently was chatting with someone in LA. I was at a workshop, Erotic Blueprint. That's something I'm studying. It's so much fun. So I was there with about 75 other coaches. We're training to do the Erotic Blueprint work. And so I was chatting with them, and one girl, she's like, I don't totally understand why I have the same reaction of shame that you're just talking about, because I was oozing my story, whatever. Can I stop talking about it? No. So anyway, so when we were chatting, she's like, yeah, my family, European, very open. My parents taught me about here. This is what it is. Not overly, but just, okay, this is like health lessons at home, normal. And yet she was realizing her whole community was very church-based. So she was in Arizona, a very church-based community. So she actually absorbed it through, she couldn't even pinpoint the conversations, but somehow she'd got the message.
I feel the same about myself. Yeah, I can't pinpoint lessons I was taught or parables or or whatever exactly, but just the whole miasma of it, I think, really affected me in a big way, a shame way.
Yeah.